I'm still shocked that this episode can actually last up to 8 hours on Google Hangout if needed. Welcome to Hacking Business Technology, the show that really, we've tried to keep it under 30 minutes every time, and we've failed twice now.
That's okay. That's a good track record. We have to embrace failure. That's one of our...
Celebrate and embrace failure. If you didn't catch it last week, definitely tune in. So the hot news today, or what's making my blood boil, I don't know if you can differentiate the two, but the hot news today is that Axelos has this exciting new announcement that they announced today. I'm also advertising for Dyson Vacuums. Welcome, Mr. Hooper. Thanks for showing today.
Thanks, Baron. Thanks for inviting me, as always.
Oh, man. Come on. Even if you show up late like Mark Kawasaki's going to in about 2 minutes, you are welcome in my company anytime.
Thanks, brother.
So, the Axelos announcement. Can you tell us what is so exciting about the Axelos announcement?
I cannot. I don't get it. I'm confused. ITIL practitioner, I thought that existed already. Maybe they dumped it in version 2011?
Oh, maybe. I didn't think that they would actually just like sunset and then try to bring it back. I didn't think about that play.
I mean, wasn't it release and control, support and restore?
Well, that's part of service, one of the service books, one of the service pillars.
Practitioner certification, I think. I don't know. We have to do some research on this. We're going to have to do the Wayback Machine there and go find out.
Only had some real times video effects I could actually put on that stuff. So, what the thing is like, I think, Peter did a pretty good job of single take video that kind of explains what it is. I thought it was a little wordy. There was a lot of business acumen, a lot of jargon. I think you could probably, as a communication and comms company, probably trim that down a little bit, make it a little bit easier to consume. You sort of get a feeling like they're announcing this to sort of get a feel for the market at the same time as not investing a ton in developing the content beforehand.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so listen, we know we love our friends in the UK at Axelos.
Of course.
They came on our show originally to break the news, and we love them. But this announcement's striking me kind of funny. First, Peter seems a bit unsure about it. He's clearly reading from a teleprompter, which there was a lot of information to deliver. But it seemed, that the only thing I took away that was really exciting is he says, we've been listening for months, and this is what we've come to the table with. Which is great to hear them listening, right? We want them to listen. We want them to hear the community. We want them to respond. But the ITIL practitioner as an adjunct to the existing certification levels, it's confusing me for someone who's been around ITIL for a while. And, I thought that practitioner exam existed previously. I don't remember the announcement where it went away. Now it's back, and it's supposed to be brand new. I don't know.
It's tough to swallow. I think, ITIL in and of itself is I think it's really valuable. I mean, clearly, it gives us an operating model to actually deliver decent services. I think it's huge. They've done great things. I think adding on to it doesn't make any sense. There's a specific phrase that is echoing in my mind right now that I heard Peter say specifically, and that is that it further enhances the value or the business value of ITIL. And that part just makes my brain explode, because I think you reach a maturation level of 3.5, 4.5, somewhere around there, and you start to realize that even if you got to a 5, the value that you would receive is incrementally less than the first fires that you were putting out. These fires are way smaller. These fires were really big, and now we can at least see where all the fires are. Like, that's a big deal to even start at.
Right.
I think at some point, though, an organization needs to say, look, we don't have these other basics in place in our other departments.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he talked about cloud computing, and he talked about technology, but it was in a very unconnected way. Right, because the reality is ITIL doesn't necessarily give us a lot of guidance on that stuff. So, analytics and cloud, they're all very important, and they exist in and around the ITSM framework and a part of the ITSM ecosystem. But is this, I guess the question is this the scream for relevancy back to the DevOps thing? Has DevOps upset the apple cart so much that it's actually reaching back into Axelos and someone saying, we need a strategy to handle virtualization and cloud and analytics and automation, which are pillars of DevOps speak, right? Are we just I'm wondering, are we on the buzzword wagon here, or is this now going to set the framework for a whole new set of books that will come out?
If you were let me ask you this, because it's hard to innovate in this space, right? Yes. So, and I don't think that we can just throw Axelos under the bus without carrying ourselves underneath it as well. So, Hooper, if you were going to innovate and change ITIL and add more value to it, what would you do?
It's a great question. So first off, there needs to be a ranking system, right? In ITIL, across the books and across the processes and across the functions, everything's treated as an equal. And the reality is we know that they're not. And then there's been some guidance like, the lean ITIL and things like that, which clearly are setting a precedent of these are the more important ones, or at least these are the foundational layers. So, that needs to be given some more practicality, because the reality is some people want to build on foundation, but it doesn't exist yet. They want to jump into self-service catalogs, which will do complex workflows where they have no clue how to handle a non-standard request or request item.
And all the tasks go into a queue that no one's already watching, and no one will continue. And your culture can't adapt to that new way of working in queues.
Yeah, and we need a more open advancement of knowledge for those people who are more mature, right? So I just recently read, which was an excellent post by Jules Moore, on categorization, right, for incident. It's still a complex thing, and a lot of people still struggle with it, and that's cool for foundation, but there are some people who are way beyond that, and they're using, KCS as a pillar for integrating, category type and items against incidents almost automatically based on the short description and things like that. And these are very advanced, cool features for a more mature organization. Where's the guidance there, right? For those who've gone beyond having to categorize their incidents because we're using natural language processing, we're using free-form text, or we're using automation that looks up who the user is and what they're calling about, and they're self-defining. Right? More advanced practices, but they still are ITSM, right? But they're more advanced ITSM, but there's no guidance there. So people are out there doing Wild West, not able to share. So if I was reinventing ITIL, first of all, it would not be a set of books as much as it would be, as you said, an operating model. It would be an open framework that people could adhere and apply to, and frankly rank what works and what doesn't. We continually hear people doing discovery to populate their CMDB on initial loads. How many times does someone have to hear that to hear it fails, yet everybody thinks that's the magic bullet because everybody else has got a new discovery tool, right? We need to have that out there in a form, consistent form, a regulated form that says, here's what we found, here's the use cases, here's the value of it.
Yeah, and incentivize some sort of collaboration, some sort of, it'd be really cool to actually have that practical guidance, or like community site, for example, where people could collaborate on the different framework elements. Yeah, that's key, and investing in outreach programs to people so that you can listen to their problems and speak back. I think that it needs to be a two-way communication street. Like what Hooper's example is those people that are really mature, technically speaking and process speaking. Fairview Health is a perfect example in Minnesota. They're always pushing the boundaries of what ServiceNow is able to do and what all of their platforms are able to do. Mm-hmm. And they'll come to the table with these really difficult use cases where there's just no filler for that gap. There's no niche tool. There's no process around it. There's no one's done it before. And I think what I hear you saying, Hooper, I really like, because you're saying that research is key. Like, that's the depth that you need. You need to understand service management, the core of it, but then also have these touch touch points, the basics, the foundational, just reaching out to people and saying like, look, here's how you get from all these points into something a bit more rich.
Yeah. What do people love about user groups? They love user groups because it's an opportunity to share what I did and why I did it, what worked, what didn't. And what didn't work for me might work for you, but if you know why it didn't work for me, it lets you make that decision. And like Peter's video, he says, we were listening to people, we were listening to the community. Well, what were you listening to? What were they saying? I know what I hear. You know what you hear. But I'd love to know what they hear.
Yeah, transparency.
Transparency, yeah. I want to see the complaints or the issues or the concerns from the EIs. I want to see them from the training, the ATOs. I want to hear what their situation, because I don't live in that world, right? I'm not an exam institute. I'm not a training company, like ITSM Academy or somebody like that. I want to know what their complaints are to help me understand what you're doing. So when you bring something to market, you don't live in that bubble, right? Live to where we are, So here's what we heard is, you were at foundation level, and then the jump to expert was really large and very time consuming, and it didn't necessarily give you focused setting. This is why we put this practitioner certification. So if you are a network engineer, you will know how to handle X, Y, and Z. Make it so that we understand what the solution is solving the problem of. That's what didn't come across from it. And I think in ITIL in general, it's not there. It's not a system. It's not a community that has been formalized. There's no de facto place to go to, for instance, for true guidance and support.
Yeah, except for your trusted business partners and that one podcast, what's it called? Hacking Business Technology. Oh, yes, thank you very much. Actually, if you do have questions, it is free consulting. So just at HackBizTech on Twitter or send an email to the host at HackBizTech. I'm sure you'll get an answer from Hooper, who's really wise, Kawasaki, who's very practical, Farah, who's been consulting for years to huge firms, and you'll get some wacky left-hand stuff from me too. So we're going to stop talking about this now. We have to stop talking about it now because I said at the beginning we weren't even going to talk about this. It doesn't deserve to be talked about. Oof.
We've blown 13 minutes on it.
That's tough.
Let's slightly shift the gears here because there's something I want to talk about. Let's go back to DevOps for a second.
Cool, yeah.
Because, I'm watching this space closely. I'm involved with the nose of the nose, right? Jane Grohl gets me her little inside tips, and I'm in the club, right? So I'm very special. But it's amazing to me, like the rapid adoption of the buzzwords of DevOps. Like I'm kind of watching. I did some Google trending. I'm searching like for DevOps type things, and I'm looking at all these sites. Like almost every product now that serves IT management in any way, you can do their website and do /DevOps. So you can go ca.com/DevOps.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can go to so many different sites. You can go to rackspace.com /DevOps. It's like, everybody's got this /DevOps. IBM, so it just really, it blows my mind. There's a DevOps for Dummies now. Is this the acceptance point? Is this the, or are we headed to the trough of despair? Like, are we now going to start seeing, remember when ITIL was like, oh, we brought in ITIL, we were able to get our arms around change management, it was great, and then like years later, you hear, yeah, we tried ITIL, it failed. So, we tried ITIL. So when are we going to say, well, we tried DevOps, that didn't work so well? Like, when are those stories going to start bubbling up? If anybody has one of those stories, ping me on Twitter at vigilantguy.com. I want to hear that. I want to talk about that because to me, DevOps is not something you try. Like ITIL, it's not something you try. It's a way of doing things, and so it's like, it's really interesting to me.
Same thing. We always hear about it failing. I come into a lot of projects on the training end of things, which is really interesting because a lot of times these projects don't actually consider the user interface until the very end when you're talking about training. And so you end up having this, like, what I call an upstream effort to impact business requirements and process and design elements, and you're trying to really paddle upstream to get further away from the waterfall, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I tweeted this week, if you're going to be agile, you have to purchase agile, which I think really comes down to skipping a bunch of sprints and choosing a platform that is actually flexible and going to do what you need it to do. And then I think that sort of pairs well with enterprise architecture. When you're putting data into this thing, let's build it in such a way that not only are our switching costs going to be $0, but we can retain our data forever. And I think beyond those two elements, you've sort of just cut out like all of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You've cut out the need to set up an operating model. You've cut out the need to, in some cases, you've cut out the need to provide support if you've sourced it to the right partners. And so when you say ITIL failed and we spent all this money, there's lots of different flavors of that. There's leadership didn't see the value, company got bought during a project, they shut down a $3 million project for no reason. Yes, these are the story. These are the battle wounds of ITSM. And I think DevOps kind of goes along the same way. You see it in other business processes. HRIS sometimes has failed implementations. Financial ERP systems. This is the ERP system of yesterday. How many times did someone say, "Oh, we tried to switch, now we've got 2 ERP systems"? I'm using my old man voice there for a reason. And I think we keep having that conversation over and over. We'll blame the tool, or we'll blame the process, or we'll blame the framework. And I think it's none of those things. I think it's just how we operate. It's a business. It's all of those things. When you talk to a consultant, they'll say a lot of times that phrase, "It depends."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fit for purpose.
Yeah. Because there's just so many different ways to approach a lot of these things, and the reality is what are your goals, right? And what are your expectations on achieving those goals? Everybody says transformation this and transformation that and transformation this. It's just improving. It's just fixing the things that are broken. And what are the things? What are the things that are broken that impact the organization the most, right? If you focus on those things and make it significant improvements, everybody buys into that. But if you try to tackle a whole bunch of stuff and you've got half-baked ideas all over the place and your scope is too large, then you lose people. Like, oh, we didn't get the results we're looking for. Well, what was your expectation? I mean, how much transformation did you really think could happen in 6 months?
Yeah, and this kind of comes back to our conversation from last week, which is how do you fail? How do you try? How do you capture those trials? A lot of times I'll tell people just start. Do a proof of concept, try it out. You think you guys should do social media? Try it out. Share some content on LinkedIn. See how the data flows. Are you getting more? Are you getting not? Do database decisions. You want to make wise decisions. Base it on data. Invest the time to get the data too, which is really important. And then, you see this in marketing and sales a lot. Marketing people will copy each other. They'll say, well, that GE is doing that, so I have to buy a Super Bowl ad. That's how I'm going to sell as many light bulbs as them for sure.
Right.
And it's a mistake to do that, and we do that with frameworks, and we do that with tools all the time. We say that someone saw a value in that, so I am going to see the same value. We delude ourselves into thinking that way, and you need to stop, and you need to take a wise, cautious approach at understanding how your business operates. And it's difficult, and it's not easy, and a lot of times you can't source it to a consultant, and if you do, it has to be someone that you trust, because otherwise they're lying to you to sell you some crappy car. They're saying, this car is perfect for you, and really it doesn't even have a transmission.
Yeah, they can be. It comes back to, when you're chasing a market, right, it's less risk because it's been validated, right? The fact that he does this, it's been validated. I've been doing some independent consulting since I left my last company. And it's been to a lot of ITSM consulting companies that want to grow and market themselves. It's very interesting. We were just having a conversation with one of them where we were talking about ServiceNow's acquisition of Intreis, which was a GRC professional services firm. And this particular company was kind of in the GRC space, did some DR, and said, well, I'm really afraid of that. And I said, well, it's validated the market, right? Validated that people are looking to do more automation and more workflow in and around audit, in and around risk management, risk analysis. And, ITSM at the end of the day is just a governance platform. So, understand that acquisition strategy or go-to-market strategy, right? And so it validates the markets that are going to be funded so you can go chase them. So I get that perspective of it. But, interestingly enough, I was on a talk show this week called The Line, and they talked about, the host talked about this thing called, I haven't put the link out yet, I will, Baron, talked about the innovation dilemma, right? And the innovation dilemma is an interesting thing. It's where you can innovate in smaller size, but at scale it's really hard to innovate. Smaller companies typically can innovate quicker and faster. They're more speedboats, whereas bigger companies are the Titanic. They can't be as agile and nimble. And so it really broke down the science of it. I'm just starting to read the book. It's very interesting. But a point that I thought was really important, and we both talked about this, is that people try to implement innovation. You cannot implement innovation. You can create a culture of innovative people who innovate and create new things and handle things in new ways and craft new solutions. But you cannot create innovation.
Yeah, I think I tweeted it today. Employees hate being lied to about company values.
Yes.
Values are not something that you can assign to something, an organization specifically. There's something that you discover, you find, you understand. Like, I've walked into companies and they've said things like, we value teamwork, #1. And then you get into the company, and the first thing they introduce you to is, here's our sales platform where we keep track of all of our money. Turns out they value money more than innovation, or money more than customer satisfaction.
Well, aspirations are usually what you see in most corporate values, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting as I have discussions now in my interviewing process. People say we got a great culture. And I'll ask them, so what are some of the things that you do when you're not talking about business or having business meetings? And it's
blank stare.
Yeah. It's like there's no lunch and learns, there's no after work gatherings, there's no kind of extracurricular stuff. It's just like, so really in essence what you have is an aspiration of a fun, exciting culture.
We have a great culture.
Yes. Or it's this. I wish we had a great culture.
Saying we have a great culture makes it so.
Yes.
That was another tweet this week. I said calling something governance does not make it so. That seems to be that a lot of people are doing that. Speaking of good culture, Apple gave away $50 million this week to diversity initiatives, including HBCU colleges, which is historically black colleges and universities, and then women. There's a specific industry in engineering, or a school that focuses on engineering and women. And then they're setting up intern programs with them as well. So it's not just cash. They're also like going to hire these people.
Yeah, because money doesn't make enablement. You have to enable the money to actually produce the outcome.
That's what I'm talking about. Also, there's an incredible hack this week. If you see it down in the show notes below, I put a great link in. Turns out internet traffic for a large portion of the private sector internet was actually hijacked through a very specific way that makes it invisible to people. It's sometimes called the Achilles heel of the internet, because it's the one way that people will be able to break it forever. It's called Border Gateway Patrol, and they redirected traffic through the Ukraine. I think it was through the Ukraine. And what's crazy about it, what's mind-blowing about it, the reason that this is unique is because it's untraceable by both ends of the traffic. So a trace route doesn't even tell you where it's going specifically.
No. Yeah. BGP is a sustainable aspect of availability on the internet. So you need it, but it is, interesting.
So that's why I titled this episode The Internet DR exercise. So if you do depend on the internet, start thinking about encryption, because I think it's going to be the only way that you can send data.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that internet thing. I really don't think it's going to take off.
Well, you see, it's a series of tubes, and you don't want to be stuck behind a truck on one of the tubes.
Yeah, there's bad people on that internet. You better be careful.
Oh, that internet there. Okay, so I have to correct a podcast from past. I said that Cote left 351, and I didn't know where he was going. He went to Pivotal. If you didn't see it this week, he actually was on the Pivotal podcast. So it's kind of funny. I love seeing Cote and his podcast, but it's funny to see him on another corporate podcast.
Yeah, Cote, he's a rock star, and I owe him a public apology because I blew him off in a call that he was going to have with me to give me some clear advice.
Oh, now you have to pray to the DevOps gods.
We'll have to, I'll have to get some code monkeys to do some free work for him or something.
Bring him Kim Jean's head on a plate. Gene Kim. So if you didn't see it, Chris Dancy released a bunch of information about his new platform called Existence.io. Definitely check it out. It's a great app coming for the iWatch. Congratulations to Chris. We wouldn't be here without you, man. And apparently we wouldn't be in the future without you either, because we would be dead because we're not tracking our health. But it is actually really good. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll see some of the whiteboards for the product development. What's that?
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, check it. Let's see here. Boing Boing shared a pretty good call out to one of the apps we've talked about on here a couple times called Slack. Someone actually told a good story about a company that needed it. They needed better transparency. A couple people adopted it, and now it has 100% adoption in the company. It's a great story about Shadow IT, working great if you want. The link's down in the show notes.
Awesome.
And then there was a great interview. I'm going to say great 17 more times. Snowden, actually, at South by Southwest, Boing Boing posted a quick review. I put that down in the show notes. It's actually from 2014, but it's a good summary of where we are at today and why we're at.
Still have South by Southwest?
What's that?
Do they still do South by Southwest?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, it's music conference.
Just a music conference now. The tech stuff kind of died out a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's both. It's both. I mean, they're trying to be TED and Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
TEDapalooza. But you know, it's an excuse for Austin to get a bunch of people there, and it's a college town, so that kind of makes sense. But you know, I think people need more places to just connect.
That was like the startup scene, like 2 or 3 years ago. If you were a startup and you thought that you really wanted to launch, it wasn't TechCrunch or it wasn't one of these other ones you would launch at. It was South by Southwest. So.
Yeah, you used to go interview with Scoble.
Yeah. Scoble, I think, was a big proponent of that.
I don't know what you do now. I guess you just go pitch at Google and Apple.
You move to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's how you get noticed. I don't know. It's interesting. Or you do some stunt. Ugh, terrible.
There's incubation sites now if you go to startup. It's so regionalized. Just get into an incubation program. Because there's investors everywhere.
There really are.
Yeah.
There's a lot everywhere, actually. So just keep your eyes on the prize. Focus on the money. Get some good business executives working with you right at the beginning. There's a news article about a fridge getting involved in a botnet attack. So an Internet of Things first. That was a pretty good article. And then
ice on the floor. That would be cool. Turn on the ice and water system and just like flood the house.
No, it was just sending email. A lot easier. It must have been running Windows. I mean, it's not that difficult. In any case, yeah, just watch what you're doing, people. Seriously. Focus on what matters. Refrigeration is more important than automation, believe it or not. You'll need to eat.
Yes.
And, ice boxes, although kind of nostalgic, are not very efficient. So
no.
We don't want people driving natural resources around anymore, using natural resources to drive around natural resources. Okay, and then a really cool hack, which is terrible, and don't build one of these and never buy one of these, but it's a USB kill switch. So what it does is it draws power off of the USB and stores it in capacitors. and then it'll store up. I think it's configured by default to 110 volts, and so it basically sends all this power through your computer and kills the thing. It's pretty crazy to think that someone can build something like that. It is really easy, and it's kind of fun to think about, but yeah, just be careful what you plug into your computers, people.
So no more random picking up USB drives on the street and plugging them into your computer.
No, but there are some good projects for that. There's an artist in France who actually cements them into the walls in like public areas, and the idea is that it's called I think it's called like a black box or something like that, and you can share content that way. So what they do is they're doing research to see what kind of files show up on this stuff, and like, you know, how to make a bomb has showed up on one, and it's an interesting like take on torrent data or darknet data and making it accessible to everyone.
Via USBs cemented into the wall.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are doing this, if you're going to France for this, you pick up a cheap laptop. Do not use your own.
Yeah.
That's a
Chromebook.
terrible way to see your computer explode in front of your eyes.
Oh boy.
That's all I got. Hoop, you got any more news?
No more news from me. People have way too much time on their hands. That's the news that I got.
Yeah, that's true. People do have way too much time on their hands. Any parting words? Do you have any, like, what's one thing that people can do to improve their daily lives, Mr. Hooper? Go!
I'm going to HDI. I'm kicking off a workshop on Monday, and then I'm speaking on that Friday. So if anybody's going to HDI, hit me up.
Nice. Are you going to Knowledge?
I don't know. I've been asked a few times. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm in Illinois next week doing an ITSM assessment, and then the week after I'm at HDI the whole week, and then the following week I got to go back to Boston for my daughter's wedding, and then I got to see if I'm going to go to Knowledge or not. It's a lot of going-ons around, so.
Yeah, you'll probably just be crying in your bedroom for a week after her wedding.
No, that was last week when I brought her back to Boston.
Nice.
I should be there.
Okay.
You be at Knowledge?
Yeah, I'll be at Knowledge. I'm not going to HDI. That isn't. I didn't decide to do that. They just didn't accept my speaking proposals.
Did you get your Fusion proposal in?
I did get my Fusion proposal in. It's about, you know. Actually, we should talk about it next week. We'll just talk about it next week.
Submitted that.
Maybe by then I'll know if I.
I submitted two within the.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah, I just put DevOps is the future was the first one, and then the other one was ITSM is dead.
Well, it sounds like you're a ringer to me.
No, I'll tell you what I really talked about next week.
There you go. Nice. All right, that's Hacking Business Technology. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.